Back in April, I toured one of the companies in my congressional district. It was the Peter Kramer North American Company. It's a full-line oleochemical supplier. And during my visit, one of the folks there, his name was Michael Dow, he was one of their account executives, stressed that if the production tax credits were not extended, it would be almost impossible for them to make a profit. Is that unique to them, or do you think that that's the case in a lot of businesses across the country?
Peter Kramer's a member of ours, and glad you were out to see their facility. I'm sure it was impressive. They, the experience that you heard there at your plant visit would be the exact same thing that you would hear at pretty much every other biodiesel plant that you went to, large, small, multi-feedstock. It wouldn't really matter. They would tell you the same thing. Given the important role that tax incentive plays in making us price competitive in the marketplace.
Okay, thank you. And you had also mentioned in your testimony that about the efficiency of biodiesel, and I think you mentioned that it was about for every the input being 1, the output is like 3.5 times
yes, sir.
The output. How does that compare with ethanol? Could you comment on that?
I'm not sure. I've seen different numbers for ethanol. Ethanol has a positive energy balance. I believe ours is higher. 3.5 to 1 is an extremely efficient fuel.
Yeah. The numbers that I remember are pretty close, actually, not to yours, but I think you got as much energy out almost as you put in. And so there was a real concern about that, especially arguably if you're driving up food costs and other things at the same time. So it sounds like you all are quite efficient, and I think it's something that bears looking into. Mr. Clements, if I could go to you next. Restaurants are often, open long hours and experience high customer traffic and renovate frequently. And could you expand a little bit on the importance of the 15-year depreciation schedule? I know you mentioned that Pat Teaberry, and we have a lot of bills. That's something after this meeting that I'm going to go back and look at very closely, because I know philosophically over the years we've been in favor of that, and I'm inclined to go on that bill myself as well. So if you could just talk about that briefly.
I'd be glad to. Perhaps the best way to approach it is to let you hear an example in my own situation.
Okay.
I'm a Burger King franchisee. I sign a franchise agreement for every location that I operate, and it's a 20-year agreement. Within that 20 years, I'm required to do a pretty substantial remodel at 10 years. Obviously, I have to maintain the facility and keep all the repairs and maintenance up, and keep up with the cosmetics and decor of the day. At the end of 20 years, assuming I want to renew that, and in most cases I would, then I've got to do beyond a substantial. It's almost, in a lot of cases, what we would call a scrape and rebuild, where I tear the facility down and I just completely rebuild it, or I'll go down to the concrete and 4 walls and put a new roof on it, put new air conditioners on it, put new interior walls, new plumbing, new electrical. So I have just about rebuilt the entire building, and yet I'm only halfway through the life of the 39.5 years. So from an economic standpoint, I'm sitting there still trying to figure out how to write off the rest of the building from the first round, and I'm incurring just about as much in cost on the second round. So I hope that helps explain the scenario.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Shepard, let me go to you next if I can. You had, I think, concluded in your testimony by saying, and I quote, I believe, if given the opportunity, I'd love to talk about the estate tax.
Yeah.
So I'd like to give you that opportunity.
Thanks very much. For my company and many small businesses, we are privately held, and we are an S corporation, so all of the profit from our company flows through to the owners, and we pay taxes not on our salary but on the entire profit of the company. Every year, almost 50% of that income is taxed, and it is so for my entire working life. I'm 4th generation, as Mr. Shabbat mentioned. I have a strong desire to pass it along to my kids, who I think are so far looking like they're, going to be capable of handling this. Every year, or when I die, depending on what the law is at the time, maybe 50% of the accumulated wealth will then again be taxed. So 50% tax on income throughout my life, and then another 50% on the accumulation when I die. We, of course, are preparing for that. We expect it to happen. I'd love for it to not happen because it's an incredible waste. Every year, my salary, which is typical for my position in the marketplace, is more than completely consumed by taxes on that salary and premiums to pay for life insurance that will hopefully be sufficient to pay the tax when I die. That is, and we also spend a fair amount of time just figuring out how to plan our estate for that transition, and a lot of money. I just paid an $8,000 check to a lawyer to help figure all this stuff out. So how does my family and I, how do my family and I live if all my salary is going elsewhere? We have to pull equity out of the company, and that's equity that could otherwise be invested towards more chemists, more laboratory equipment, more capacity, any number of things. But my preference, as I stated, is that rather than an R&D tax credit, which I love, by the way, because it offsets this stuff a bit, I would much rather just be able to keep the money that we make through hard work and manufacturing. We've proven that we're a good investment, and I think we would be a good investment going forward.
One quick follow-up question. When you said you could invest the money back in the company, would that perhaps allow the company to grow and potentially hire more employees as well, so other people are benefiting in the community?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me elaborate on that. 20 years ago, we had about 100 employees. Now we have about 450. We grow.
Okay. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, rather than ask questions, I think I'd like to defer to my colleagues, and if you're doing